Hello my friends, welcome back to another video, or if you're new here, welcome in. My name is Ian with Out of This World Reader, and today's video is going to be a spoiler-free review for one of my most anticipated releases for this year, and that is Age of Ash by Daniel Abraham, which is the first book in the Kithamar trilogy. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe, but so you never miss out on another adventure. And the reason this kind of was one of my most anticipated releases for this year was because I really enjoyed Daniel Abraham's work in The Expanse. He co-writes that, but I just really kind of liked his style, and I've heard great things overall about him as an author. I think his Long Price Quartet gets a lot of praise, and he says that a lot of readers, said that his kind of prose is very poetic, and just his stories and plots are also very intriguing as well, so I thought I might as well give this one a try and pick it up. And to be honest, I was really surprised with this. In the beginning, it was a bit difficult for me to kind of get going with it and kind of get immersed in the city. But after that, I just really started to enjoy the whole kind of reading experience, and I'm very excited to see where this will continue off. If you haven't heard of this follows two main perspectives mostly, but you also get a couple other perspectives that kind of help you piece together the clues and trying to figure out what is going on within Kithamar. The majority of the two, you follow firstly Alice, who loses her brother. Her brother is actually murdered, and she's kind of setting out on a quest through Kithamar to kind of figure out what happened to him and figure out who murdered him and how she can kind of get her revenge, essentially. And then you follow her friend Samus. She was very loyal and dedicated to helping Alice, but she also discovers on her own kind of investigations that maybe something else is going on, and you just see how their two kind of perspectives slowly weave together, and then at the end it all kind of comes together, and that's how it kind of wraps up within the first book. Both Alice and Samus are kind of petty thieves, and they live in Long Hill, basically, which is kind of one of the boroughs within this Kithamar, which is just like this massive kind of dirty city, and several of these boroughs are kind of backwater and just crammed full of people. There's all kinds of different kind of cultures and people's interacting within this very huge city. So you definitely see that within Daniel Abraham's kind of writing. He describes different characteristics between the boroughs, dialects, all kinds of just different interactions, and that is one thing that I really enjoyed in the Expanse series, as you kind of see the differences between the Earthers, the Martians, and then the Belters. So I could see that what kind of originated there, but it also carried over into this as well, and you just saw that especially throughout the book. Now I really want to start off kind of with world building and setting, because I feel like these two kind of walk hand in hand, especially in the beginning, because Daniel Abraham is really kind of setting the scene and getting you very familiar with Kithamar. You could basically, by the end of that little chunk of him kind of describing every single detail, in detail, very descriptive prose of the city of Kithamar and how dirty it is and how dangerous it is. You really, or I felt very immersed in the city, and I could walk down these streets and recognize Alice or Samus at any time. So there was just no problem with the descriptions. So the city was really fleshed out, and in the beginning, I was really confused as to why Daniel Abraham was kind of taking this route, because it almost felt like the city of Kithamar was getting more of a spotlight at times rather than Alice and kind of Samus, as well as the other characters in the plot. So it's what is going on here? And then about the midpoint of the book, a little bit before that, it all kind of came together. And when I figured out why he did that, it was just masterfully crafted. That aspect really reminded me of The City We Became by M.K. Jemisin. If you've read that and you've read this, please let me know kind of whether you feel the same. But at that kind of point after that, it really kind of starts to dive into the plot and where the rest of the first book was going. But that kind of initial maybe slog for some people, I really found the writing descriptive, and just the way that he kind of described the city, I just really enjoyed. So, but it might be considered a slog. I feel like a lot of people didn't enjoy that. But as far as like it was necessary for it to happen, especially for the rest of the series, because if you've read this you might know what I'm describing, but it is just kind of setting the stage, because I feel like this whole series is all going to be taking part in Kithamar, and especially those elements that came in towards the middle of the book, like it was all needed for the kind of the remainder of the series, especially this book. As far as kind of magic and stuff like that, there isn't much. There's kind of one that I can't really go into that you will kind of experience after that kind of midpoint. And I just enjoyed it. It seemed like it was a soft magic system. There wasn't kind of any set rules or anything like that, and it wasn't what was carrying and for moving forward the plot. Essentially, like it had a role, but it wasn't like anything like Mistborn or anything like that. Like yet, I have a feeling that it will kind of be expanded in the further books. So I'm interested to see how Daniel Abraham will kind of continue on with that in the further books. But the characters in this first novel, I have a feeling that in the second and third books they might focus on different characters. But in this first installment, Alice and Samish I just really enjoyed, and they felt fully fleshed out by the end of the book. I enjoyed kind of Shamish's perspective a little bit more than Alice's, but they both had they weren't the same, and they both were going about this kind of murder investigation in different ways. And you just saw how their different personalities kind of tackled the kind of the difficulties that they came across as they went about their investigation within Kithamar. And Alice has just lost her brother, and he was something so special. Like she just looked up to him so much, and after that, after his murder, you just see her dealing with grief. And I thought that the way that Daniel Abraham really tackled this was just really well done. And you just see how that grief kind of influenced Alice's kind of decisions, and how dedicated and just kind of set she is on just finding out what happened to her brother. You also see how she's kind of trying to deal with his loss and kind of trying to fulfill his shoes. That's as much as kind of like I'll say without spoiling things. But you also see with Samish her kind of loyalty and friendship and dedication to Alice, and just trying to help her out in ways that like maybe Alice isn't she doesn't like, and she doesn't kind of want or desire the help of Samus, but she still does it anyway. And to see kind of like that friendship just continue on through the book, especially towards the end, it really kicked up a notch, and I just really enjoyed seeing their development in their arc throughout this first book. I do hope that kind of Daniel Abraham will come back to these two in the future installments in the series, but especially in the beginning. Like I really enjoyed kind of them going on pulls or marks. I can't remember what they're described as or what they're called, but they're basically like stealing from the nobles and just people that are unsuspecting. And the system that they have to kind of pull off these thefts, I just really enjoyed, and how Daniel Abraham kind of fleshed that out, and how Samish and kind of Alice kind of work together to do those, and as well as how those skills kind of help them in their investigation and trying to figure out what happened and where to go in the future as they learn more. So you definitely see how their backgrounds as thieves and living in kind of what would be considered like the slums of Kithamar, how that kind of impacted in their decision making and improved in ways to kind of get them in positions to learn more. So I just really enjoyed how each of their kind of backgrounds just helped them further the plot as well. As far as things I didn't like, I can't think of much, but I would have to say the only thing that kind of was a drag for me in the beginning was at times that kind of overly descriptive writing of the city of Kithamar, until I figured it out. Like it made me look at it a different way, but since I still enjoyed like the lovely writing that he kind of incorporated, like it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad for me anyway, but it still was a bit tough to kind of get going, and it was very slow moving in the beginning, but as it's like progressed, it started to get better and become more of a page turner. But other than that, I can't think of anything that I extremely disliked. I thought the writing was perfect, and it wasn't too overly kind of poetic or confusing at times. It just flowed with the writing. The characters were really well done, and I feel like the side characters also got a little bit of a spotlight. I was hoping for a little bit more of kind of fleshing out some of them, but it wasn't the kind of, they weren't the spotlight of the story. Samus and Alice were, as well as kind of the, I guess I can't say anything else, but they weren't kind of what was Daniel Abraham was kind of going for, I think. And the way that this first one ended, it wasn't so much as like a cliffhanger or anything like that, but it definitely left it open for just a lot to come in the future. And I have a feeling, based on some of the other reviews that I've kind of seen, that Daniel Abraham kind of really starts off his first books in his series very slow, kind of sets the scene, but then they each kind of pick up with each book. So I'm very interested to kind of see how the second book will kind of progress, and then how the third book will kind of finish it all off. But I'm very excited to kind of continue on with this series. I ended up giving this first installment 4 stars, and I would definitely recommend, if you want to kind of check out anything by Daniel Abraham, especially if you did enjoy his Long Price Quartet, which I haven't read yet, but now that I finished this, I really want to, or if you enjoyed kind of his writing in The Expanse. But that is going to be all for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed this spoiler-free review, and I look forward to seeing you in the next adventure. But it is time for Ellie to come on here and first wish you all to have a splendid day. But she also says that adventure is out there. So I'll catch you next time. Bye.